Dear students, our today's topic is Aunt Jennifer Steigers, written by Adrienne Rich. This is the sixth and last poem of the Flamingo textbook of class 12. In this first video, we will discuss about the poet, about the summary, message, and themes of this poem. Now, first of all, about the poet. Adrienne Cecile Rich, born on May 16, 1929 and died on March 27, 2012, was an American poet, essayist, and feminist. She was called one of the most widely read and influential poets of the second half of the 20th century and was credited with bringing the oppression of women and lesbians to the forefront of poetic discourse. Rich criticized rigid form of feminist identities and valorized what she coined the lesbian continuum, which is a female continuum of solidarity and creativity that impacts and fills women's lives. This is the figure of Adrienne Rich. Now, Adrienne Rich was born in Baltimore, Maryland, the elder of the two sisters. Her father, renowned pathologist Arnold Rice Rich, was the chairman of pathology at the Johns Hopkins Medical School. Her mother, Helen Elizabeth or Jones Rich, was a concert pianist and a composer. Her father was from a Jewish family and her mother was a Southern Protestant. The girls were raised as Christians. Adrienne Rich's early poetic influences stemmed from a father who encouraged her to read but also to write her own poetry. Her interest in literature was sparked within her father's library, where she read the work of writers such as Ibsen, Arnold, Blake, Keats, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and Tennyson. Her father was ambitious for Adrienne and planned to create a prodigy. Adrienne Rich and her younger sister were homeschooled by their mother until Adrienne began public education in the fourth grade. The poems, sources, and After Dark document her relationship with her father, describing how she worked hard to fulfill her parents' ambitions for her. Moving into a world in which she was expected to excel. So, the poems, sources, and After Dark document her relationship with her father, describing how she worked hard to fulfill her parents' ambitions for her. Moving into a world in which she was expected to excel. Now, next. In later years, Rich went to Ronald, Rich went to Roland Park Country School, which she described as a good old fashioned girls' school that gave them that gave us fine role models of single women who were intellectually impassioned. After graduating from high school, Rich earned her college diploma at Radcliffe College, where she focused primarily on poetry and learning writing craft, encountering no women teachers at all. In 1951, her last year at college, Rich's first collection of poetry, A Change of World, was selected by the senior poet W. H. Auden for the Yale Series of Younger Poets Award. He went on to write the introduction to the published volume. Following her graduation, Rich received a Guggenheim Fellowship to study at Oxford for a year. Following a visit to Florence, she chose not to return to Oxford and spent her remaining time in Europe writing and exploring and spent her remaining time in Europe writing and exploring Italy. Now, brief life history. Now, born Adrienne Cecile Rich, May 16, 1929, Baltimore, Maryland, US. Died on March 27, 2012, aged 82. Santa Cruz, California, US. Occupation poet, non-fiction writer, essayist. Education, Radcliffe College. Genre, poetry, non-fiction. Notable works, Diving into the Wreck. Notable awards, National Book Award 1974, Bullingen Prize 2003, Griffin Poetry Prize 2010. Spouse, Alfred Haskell Conrad, married 1953 and who died in 1970. The partner, Mitchell Phillip, 1976 to 2012. Now, children and Adrienne Rich had three children. This was about the poet Adrienne Rich, who is the writer of the poem On Jennifer's Tigers. Now, next, I will give you this was the summary of the poem. Now, next, I will give you the summary of the poem On Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. Now, let us start the summary of the poem. In this poem, the poet describes a lady whom she addresses as Aunt Jennifer. The poet also says that she is doing embroidery on a piece of cloth that could be a wall hanging or tablecloth. Moreover, she has made it with beautiful tigers that are running fiercely in the green forest. Further, she describes their beauty in comparison to a topaz, as in the green background of the forest they appear bright yellow. Company of men does not affect them as they are fearless. At this point, we can sense the contrast of behavior between the aunt and tigers. Although tiger made by her is fierce, she is afraid of her husband. According to the poet, tigers are the proud and fearless citizens of the forests. These creatures are very elegant and shiny. In this para, the poet defines Aunt Jennifer's fear of her husband. While doing embroidery, she says that her fingers shake with the fear of her husband, as her husband does not approve her hobby of embroidery. Hence, she quivers while she is embroidering the piece of cloth. Also, it becomes difficult for her to pull the needle up and down. After that, she defines her wedding ring, which her husband gave her, gave her on their wedding day. In addition, she sees it as a kind of burden to wear this ring. She feels this because her husband tortures her so much that she sees the wedding ring as a burden instead of a beautiful gift by her husband. Due to the many difficulties she has faced in her married life, that she describes the little wedding ring as a heavy band on her trembling fingers. It also means that the ring is linked with some bad experiences in the form of torture that she had faced. Further, this experience relates to the dominating behavior of her husband. In the last para, in the last part, the poet says that though art's design of tigers can easily sense her desire for freedom and fearlessness. However, the poet says that it is not possible for her to achieve this freedom during her lifetime. Only after her death she will attain freedom. But the irony here is that even then she will be tied with chains in the form of her husband's wedding ring. This ring is the only proof of the pains that she had faced from her husband. On the contrary, the tigers made by Aunt Jennifer will always portray her desire for living a fearless life by jumping boldly and proudly on a piece of cloth. Dear students, this was the summary of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. Now, we will, I will give you the message of this poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. The message is women have been subjected to patriarchal, patriarchal norms and had to live under the dominance of males throughout the ages. Even in the poem, Aunt Jennifer is a victim of failed marriage and patriarchal husband who controls her life. But the poem gives the message of woman emancipation and upliftment not by revolting against their husbands but by expressing themselves in art. Art is free, unlike woman's married life. It is everlasting, unlike human's life. And finally, it is a world in which woman can escape and feel better. In the poem, the tigers, which Aunt Jennifer carves, are totally different than her. They are bold, fearless, courageous, and move in chivalrous way. On the other hand, Aunt Jennifer herself is a victim of failed marriage. Her husband controls her life. She always remains afraid. Her fingers tremble like birds flutter. The poet says that the ring of her marriage will remain on her fingers even after death. The poet says that the ring of her marriage will remain on her fingers even after death. However, her art, that's the tigers, will always remain bold and fearless. Note this point. The poet says that the ring of her marriage will remain on her fingers even after death. However, her art, the tigers, will always remain bold and fearless. This was the message of the poem. Now, at the end, I will give you the themes of the poem. Now, themes of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. Now, there are mainly two themes, rather three themes in the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, and we will discuss them one by one. Number first is evils of patriarchal society. The first and the foremost theme of this poem is the evils of patriarchal society. In this poem, Aunt Jennifer is described as a victim of failed marriage. She has been married to someone who is controlling her life. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. She remains terrified. Her fingers keep fluttering like the wings of a bird because of fear. While carving the tigers, she cannot hold the needle properly, and this is the height of the fear that she is experiencing. The poet describes wedding band and as uncle's wedding band, which means she has absolutely no control over her life. Even after death, the ring of her marriage will remain stuck to her fingers. The, the ring will not be removed even after her death. It will go with her dead body or corpse. So, she is not free even after death. The poet is against this type of mentality and society. So the poet describes wedding band as uncle's wedding band, which means she has absolutely no control over her life. Even after death, the ring of her marriage will remain stuck to her fingers, so she is not free even after death. The poet is against this. The poet is against this type of mentality and society. This was the first theme. Now the second theme is woman emancipation. Second important theme of the poem, Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, is woman emancipation and upliftment. The poet belongs to a time when the society was dominated by patriarchal thinking, and women had begun protesting against this dominance. In the poem, the poet talks provides reasons why there is need of the upliftment of woman. Uncle is described as a stern patriarch who controls the life of Aunt Jennifer. The only way of escaping is her art, where she feels relieved. The poet is against this hellish life of woman. She wants to uplift the woman so that they may not remain dependent on men for food and shelter. This was the second theme. Now, the third and last theme, importance of art. The third theme of the poem is art. We know that during the rise of feminism, many women writers came forward to raise their voice, which was suppressed through ages in the male dominated society. The poet herself is one of them. In the poem, Aunt Jennifer is an artist who carves the tigers. These tigers are not like her. They are bold, fearless, and chivalrous. They express the hidden desires and the bitterness against marriage or male dominated society of Aunt Jennifer. Her art is the only place where she can escape to feel ease. For poet, women can only be uplifted if they use art to express themselves. Dear students, these were the themes of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. So in today's video, we discuss about the author Adrienne Rich, about the summary, about the message, and about the themes of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. With this, we conclude towards today's topic. Have a nice day. Thank you.